Welcome all to today's Lunchbox Talk offered through the North Carolina Botanical Garden. My name is David Michaud. I'm the Registrar and Program Coordinator here on the Learning and Community Engagement team. We have a wonderful audience here in person, as well as several folks joining online, mostly North Carolina audience. However, we do have some folks joining from Michigan, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, and South Carolina. So we welcome all of you tuning in virtually. This talk is part of our bird-friendly landscape series, which we're running through April. There are programs for everyone from budding birders to avian enthusiasts, so please look for additional programs on our calendar, and we hope to see you at those programs. There's gardening classes, art classes, field trips, so something for everyone there. And a huge partner on that series is the New Hope Bird Alliance. And I'd like to welcome to the stage Barbara Driscoll, who is the head of the Bird Friendly Habitats Committee with New Hope Bird Alliance. And before I forget, before Barbara comes up, I'd like to alert you to the bird count, NC bird count coming up. February 14th through 17th. So if you're here in the room, we have some flyers up on the center table, and we'll get some details in upcoming newsletters to those of you joining us virtually. So without any further ado, I will welcome Barbara up to the stage, and she'll introduce Mary for us.
Thank you, David. And I just want to say what great partners the North Carolina Botanical Garden have been. We've worked with them on a number of different presentations, and their staff has helped us put together some great programming for the next several months. I am co-chair for the Bird Friendly Habitats program, and I have some brochures. There's some also in the visitor center. Native plants for bird brochures, and we also do a yard certification visit. It costs $50, and we come out to your yard and have a plant ID expert and several of our people here in the room. And we provide a report, and we also have a certification sign, so I have some brochures on that too. I am so excited to invite Mary to talk. She is someone I admire for her photography. She's a wildlife photographer, a naturalist, and a writer based in Carborough. And if you follow her, you get so many wonderful tidbits about nature. Not to mention just wonderful photos, but just great information about why is this turtle doing this? Why is that salamander out? I mean, it's just incredible, her knowledge. Her writing and photos have been featured in the Carborough Citizen, Chapel Hill News, Durham Herald, and Charlotte Observer. In addition to these publications, her photos have been featured in NC Audubon, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, Triangle Land Conservancy, and Arc of Appalachia. And with further ado, I will let you enjoy some of her wonderful photos and stories. Thank you.
Well, first off, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know it's a little icy outside, so it's not so much fun to drive. So thank you very much for coming out. And I also want to thank the North Carolina Botanical Garden. For many years, they have been such generous, kind friends to me. I will get these little contacts where a member of the staff will say, Mary, we've got a really good moth up on the porch. Come on out and see it. So they've done all these wonderful things. And I'm here to say that what they do is so important for our birds. It's not just for the plants. They have these wonderful native plant sales, things like that. But the whole idea is to maintain the environment we have right here. And for that, I am very thankful. And anytime I can do anything for them, I am just delighted. I'm also delighted to be here at the sponsorship of the New Hope Bird Alliance. Again, doing something for the nature right here in the Triangle. And I'm a big believer in land conservancies. If we want to stop development, what we have to do is buy up the land. And that's the way we're going to make a difference, that make our own backyards friendly. So with that, let's get to sharing. And here we go. All right. I actually like speaking to audiences. I don't have, a fear that everyone's going to hate me or anything like that, but I do have one fear, and that is that the computer equipment won't work. And this is the look I get when somebody says, "We don't have that cable." And you're in panic, and there are 100 people waiting for you to talk, and you can't talk. So thank you, David Michaud. It is wonderful to be here, and he really knows his stuff. So on we go. If all the year were playing holidays, then to sport would be as tedious as to work. But when they seldom come, they wished for come, and nothing pleaseth but rare accident. I mention this because migration season is coming up, and it's really special here in the Triangle to see these birds that we, especially your migrating species, that we might only see for 1 week, for 1 day, for 1 minute. And I know that in April and May, when someone calls me and says, "Hey, Mary, you want to go for lunch and do some shopping?" And it's like, if you're not going tweet, tweet, get off my phone. Um, you know, I mean, this is our time to shine. And so we're going to see some of the ordinary and the rare that are available right now. We're going to start out with the first to arrive, the Louisiana water thrush. This water thrush is not a water thrush, it's the first warbler. And I invite you all to go to the back gate here, and you are going to hear the song of the water thrush. And it's absolutely lovely, and it's rather loud. And I mention it because they're the first to arrive. And so my friends and I all sit and go, well, it was March 19th last year. It was the 25th the year before. And, like kids getting ready for Christmas, we want to see the Louisiana water thrush. The song is loud because they are a warbler that feeds in shallow, pebble-filled creeks. Reason to protect our creeks. There's got to be bugs there for those water thrush to eat. So anytime you hear, "Let's build next to a creek," don't do it. We need those creeks to be nice and fresh and clean for the Louisiana. And here it is again. Again, go out late March. Just listen right along that Morgan Creek behind the Botanical Garden. And here it is at the Botanical Garden. And there it is, gathering food from the water. So this is an environment that's friendly to them. White-eyed vireo, not everything is a warbler. The white-eyed vireos are another early arriver. Remember, they're going to breed here. And the vireo, you can always quickly tell a vireo from a warbler. One, they have a little hook right at the end of the beak. And two, they're lunky-headed. If you look at one side view, it's like it's all head and a little tiny body. And so it's kind of a quick way to remind yourself, am I looking at a warbler or a vireo? This one was nesting at Brumley. And to give you an idea of how smart birds are, this bird was found nesting next to the Brumley Trail, main trail, about 15 feet off the trail. Everyone took its picture. Successful, as you can see, it has 4 youngsters. And then the next year, it was on the same branch 3 feet away. Now, I mean, no GPS, and it managed to do this, and I just thought it was pretty darn cool. Another early arriver is the yellow-throated warbler. They also breed here. You're going to hear them first at Bynum Bridge is one of the places we go. The wonderful thing about Bynum is that bridge, which is now a historic landmark, is up in the canopy. So if the birds are up high, you actually get to see them eye level. But in my case, I'm a huge believer in what goes up must come down. And so what I love to do is find out where the birds want to take a bath. And so instead of having to listen up in the pines and get bad photos, I sit in a chair and I find my little stream and just wait for them. If you're quiet enough, eventually they'll come in. You might have to have 2 hours and a cold drink with you, but you're going to see some really cool birds. Northern Parula, if you'll notice, also in water. Now, this bird nests rather high, so I really depend upon those water spots to see one. Here it is building its nest. This is over Bynum. It was right over the bridge, and you can see there are lichens and moss in there, and it's a cup-like structure that they sort of surround themselves with. But without a big camera, it's really hard to get a good view. So, find your local water spot. Prothonotary warbler. This is our great swamp singer. I mean, this is the bird of the South. They breed here, they're loud, they're very public. And this is my favorite puddle. We had a dry spring, and I wanted to catch them in water, and I happened to notice birds stopping at a puddle on the trail. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to camp out here. And then that dried up. And so I went to the creek and kept refilling it every day. And I'd bring my gallon jug and I'd say, come on, guys. And I'd sit down and I get to see these birds. So you can, by being quiet, really become part of the furniture. And I love doing that with warblers. You do keep your distance, but at the same time, you're quiet enough that the birds are going to come in and you'll get these face views. Everyone has this picture. Bathonotaries love to sing, and some people call it a boring song because it's loud and it's repeated and it's not that musical, but to me it's like I'm in the South and it's just a beautiful experience. Here it is grabbing insects right in front of you. They are voracious eaters like every warbler. They depend upon insects. And so we have to do everything we can to keep our insect populations high. And so Berthonotary is really a warbler I guarantee everyone can see. Go to Bynum Bridge and just walk through. All birds don't agree all the time. I don't know if you can see this picture, but there's a claw going like directly into the face. These are two male warblers rolling on the ground and they're brawling, and one has a claw on the other's eyelid. They will eventually work it out. Most times, nobody is damaged permanently, but they're pretty serious about territory. And this is our beautiful prothonotary. This one I waited hours for. I saw one piece of wisteria. I know it's invasive, but I'm a photographer. I wanted wisteria and the purple in it. And finally, my friend the prothonotary came up and sang. So they're a great warbler. If you're not familiar with warblers, do go check out the bridge. And here we see them nesting. This is at Mason Farm. Our prothonotary is a cavity nester. It protects them against some predation because they are above water. So those snags that hang into a stream and have a good cavity they're going to use, lower right-hand corner, you can see how deep it is. The birds, the tiny little fledglings, are actually deep down in that cavity. And that might just help them against something like a raccoon coming in and trying to reach in. So the male is on the right bringing food, and that's the female on the left. By the way, it's interesting to watch how they nest. He comes ahead of time and picks out a bunch of cavities, various snags along the way over water. And what he does is he'll put in a single blade of grass or a little stick or something to sort of stage the apartment before it's shown. Then she arrives later and she looks at the various cavities and makes her decision, well, yes, this is where we're going to stay, at which point she furnishes. She's the one who does all the gathering of sticks. He really doesn't do much with that, but he is helpful. He tries to guard the nest. He tries to warn her if somebody is coming, and he does an equal share of feeding the young. Okay, this is at the Botanical Garden. Um, Hooded warblers are another local that you're going to see, and they're one of my favorites. They're aggressive, they're public, um, they can be angry little birds. And in this case, this male saw its reflection in one of the cars out back and was very angry. And so he spent his day attacking the side view mirror, and then he would perch on the edge of a car and see yet another hooded and get mad all over again. So I was taking pictures and having a ball, but feeling kind of sorry that instead of being a warbler, he was busy arguing. So I contacted people at the Botanical Garden. I said, you know, it's on your car and it's not good. And the people here are so nice that the next day when I came out, people had little dishcloths over, over the thing. And I just thought, you know, they play so nicely here. The staff is really wonderful. So this one was taken from within my car. I didn't have my, thing up because I was taking pictures. So I climbed into the back seat of my car so that I could back out with my lens. And he's on the edge of my car, looking in and saying, I'm going to kill the next hooded I see. So they can be really fun. But again, thank you to the Botanical Garden. Here's another hooded. This female hooded was up at Bynum. And I knew where her nest was, and I knew that all day in the heat, she was sitting on those eggs. And at the end of the day, she came down, and you have never seen a female so happy to have a spa day. She just stayed in that water, and there's something so sweet. Sometimes when they're in the water, warblers, they don't sing, but they open their mouths. The excitement is so great for them, and she was just a beautiful little warbler. Um, Another thing about birding locally is you get to know your birds. As much as I love a wonderful trip out west or a place with a guide where they take you to see great birds, what is even more fun is seeing it on your own, of discovering it on your own. Now, on my trail behind my house, we have hooded warblers. And I watched this female. She's got these long cedar strands from a dead piece of cedar. I watched her gather these day by day. And that is what she's going to wrap her tiny little teacup nest in. That's the outer core. So I got to see that. Then I got to see her with the babies, and you could see in the nest those same strips of bark. Then I saw her baby, one of her fledglings. It looks big here. It's actually like a golf ball with big feet. The legs are all grown, but you see this little tiny figure looking out at you. And I just adore that continuity of getting to know actual families. And that's something that a guide saying, hey, there's this bird, they can't do that for you. You can do that for yourself. And it's half the joy of it. Okay, now this was a story. Um, this is again one of these water spots where everybody gathers. And in the foreground is a young hooded warbler. And I've mentioned that they're aggressive. So this particular little warbler was mad because a migrating warbler was in its water spot. It was furious. And you can see there's a look of, can you believe it? Look at this guy invading my room. So this warbler's looking at it, and I said, oh, this is, as my mother would say, this will end in tears. I'm watching this go on, and there was fluttering back and forth. And then I see this. And you can see this is a young hooded warbler. And my worry was, you're going to die. You're not going to, they're getting ready to migrate. You can't do anything. And my reaction, I was so mad at the worm eating. I was like, Annie Wilkes, you dirty. Anyway, so I was horrified. I came back 4 days later, and if you'll notice, there's a little horseshoe-shaped scar, but the bird made it. And I just thought, what could be better than this? This is one family, and you're watching their successes and their failures. Another great bird. This is another warbler, an oven bird. They're named after the oven-shaped nests that they make on the ground out of leaves. When I say oven, I mean a Dutch oven, one of those little oblong structures that has a hole in the side for entering. And what's cool about this bird is they walk on the ground, and all the coloring is in the front. Nice, crisp black and white, beautiful orange head stripe. And then when they get out uh, on the ground, they don't hop like a bird or a sparrow, they walk. And even if they come to an obstacle, they go, and they continue walking. And it's kind of this cute little mechanical walk. Reminds you something like of a rodent, but they're really cool to see. The back has very little markings, and that's kind of important for a ground bird when seen from above. And again, water is my friend. They're going to be calling from up in the canopy to declare territory, but they come down to get worms, to get caterpillars, and to bathe. And again, you can see that beautiful crest. When they're upset, they will flash that crest, and it'll be this rust-colored, beautiful crest. Not just warblers coming down, we're going to be welcoming our indigo buntings. Experienced birders are kind of snobs, and sometimes you'll go out at Mason Farm where there are lots of indigo buntings, and somebody will say to you, "What did you see this morning?" I said, "Just the indigos." And they go, "No migrants, no migrants." And everybody goes about. But they're gorgeous birds, and as much as we take them for granted, they're really a pleasure to see, especially on rainy days. A bright sunny day, you may not notice them because the reflection of glaring midday light makes them look sort of a blackish purple. It's not that pretty, but when you get down lower or on a rainy day, then you can see that true indigo color. We also have guests that come that are a surprise. Everybody knows the Raleigh painted bunting. It's decided to breed here, and it's not a usual breeder here. But if you go to Dorothea Dix Park, you will hopefully get a chance to see the gorgeous painted bunting. We also see birds like dickcissels. This is off Dairyland Road where the old Mapleview Farm is. Rest in peace for that Mapleview Farm. And a dickcissel is, again, a visitor that we welcome, that we hope will breed here, and you can see these sometimes along the edge of the road. Back to warblers, this is another resident warbler, our black and white warbler. They tend to be a little friendlier than other warblers and don't mind you looking at them. And they're always a treat to see. The Kentucky is a warbler that breeds here. Again, these are ones you can see all through the season. I always call the Kentucky the Elvis bird because of the sideburns. And these, again, are one of those down in the scrub, down low warblers, which makes them easier to photograph because they are going to come down and walk around the place looking for something to eat, which this one has found. And we have these at Brumley, north and south. We have these at Bynum as you go further out. We have these at the confluence up in Hillsborough. So there's a good chance you will see them. Prairie warbler. If you want a quick ID on the prairie warbler, they come here to breed. If you'll notice, it looks like someone has put on their under eyeliner under the influence of tequila. Uh, it's this scooping black line. And so these are the little field marks that can help you quickly identify a bird. American redstart, a favorite here. This is the male. They don't get their full coloration until they're 2 years old, but their breeding plumage and their non-breeding plumage is the same. These come in, we see them all the time. really wonderfully acrobatic flight. And I really enjoy that about them. If you see crazy swirls and dips and things like that, they can hunt on the wing. So it makes them really pretty to watch as they'll spiral around to get a bug. And this is the magic puddle that is at Mason Farm. So it was very useful. Here is the female redstart. She looks nothing like the male, as you can see. And she is bathing. Again, the water is the key. Okay, now this couple, their story was interesting. They were the most loving pair of redstarts. What they would do is they would come in the afternoon to bathe, but he always allowed her to bathe first, and he would stand guard and make sure that everything was okay. And I saw this day after day. Remember how vulnerable these birds are. They go down to the water, and all it takes is one Cooper's hawk coming in, and it could be the end. And this couple, he was very much looking out for her. And they also had two adorable fledglings that were jumping around like crazy and acting like crazy teenagers. And the parents were just quietly watching. But we also have another year, we had, I call it the serial killer redstart, that came in and threatened every other warbler. Nobody has any idea why, but the hooded objected, and that redstart would go after it every single time. And it was almost amusing, the differences in personality. So individual birds, and I'm not trying to be anthropomorphic, there are birds more aggressive. There are birds that are more family oriented. This one was alone, by the way. Nobody was going to put up with his nonsense. And eventually he left and things went back to peace. Common yellowthroat, another of our low warblers, common. You can see them anywhere around the triangle. And of course, the black masks gives them away. Pine warblers, a year-round warbler, they make a winter feeder a pleasant place to look at because of their color. Bobolinks are going to be coming in. We count on these over again at Dairyland, and they only come in for a few days. So May 7th through 10th about, I would say that's when we're going to see them. And I love the way they have this, the decoration is on the back, and the males have that little white, it looks like the kepi that Amish people wear. I think it's kind of cool. Palm warbler, they come in, this is a male in breeding plumage. That's because of that rust-colored cap. They tend to be down low, and you can see these anywhere on the trails or Jordan Lake. Now we're getting into the migrants. Now that means they might be here for 1 week. This is your one chance to see them. So here is a Tennessee, not particularly colorful. Here we have breeding plumage with the soft gray on the head and the olive. These are a little harder to find. And again, when they seldom come, they wished for come. I get very excited when I get to see a Tennessee. The Nashville, with its gray head and white eye ring, we only see these again a couple of weeks in spring, a couple of weeks in fall. By the way, my birding, I kind of, because I'm lazy, I tend to bird within like a half-hour radius of my home, and that's why I called this the home patch. I don't even most of the time drive to Raleigh. I like to go to all the local spots. Orange-crowned warbler. This is another botanical garden warbler. I mention this because the botanical garden grows native plants, and there are going to be more insects on them. So one November day, I'm wandering around hoping for maybe a sapsucker, and here is an orange-crowned warbler. And if you'll notice, it's got a little bit of plant fiber, but a bit of a tiny insect in with it. These birds are known, my friend Chloe says, the most descriptive field mark is there is no descriptive field mark. I can't mention wing bars, I can't mention anything. If it's a warbler and you can't see anything to say what distinguishes it, quite often it's the orange crowned. And there are some like rare individual birders who have seen the orange crown. I've never seen it in my life, so I don't know where this orange crown is because I don't see it. Cape Mays are coming in. They're going to be here in probably April, May, and if you'll notice, they are tiger striped, and their Latin name refers to tigrina, meaning tiger, tiger striped, and they're very beautiful. The females are paler, more of a beige, but you're still going to see that proliferation of spots. My favorite, and I count on it for Mother's Day gift, is the magnolia warbler. This one's in full breeding plumage, and they've got that gorgeous necklace. I don't feel like it's spring until I get to see a magnolia warbler. They don't breed here. This one was at, um, the development that everybody goes to up in Chatham. What's the name of the development? Briar Chapel. Briar Chapel, the bridge at Briar Chapel. That's where I found this one. Okay, the bay-breasted, named for its mahogany color. We do get these. I will tell you the truth. This particular picture was taken in Canada because I didn't have a really nice picture of one here, but we do get them. You'll sometimes see them at Bynum, and they're going to be going up to Canada to breed. The yellow warbler, Bynum, all yellow. You can see the male has those beautiful rust-colored stripes on the chest. This is said to be the most photographed warbler species in the United States because so many places they breed. They don't breed here, so we're happy to see them. Look to the willows. If you go to Sandy Creek, look in the willows. Anywhere you go, look in the willows. That's where they seem to like to feed. And this one was at Bynum, again, relying on water. Wilson's warbler, another unusual one with a little black cap, tiny little warbler. And this one was at Brumley. Brumley is a wonderful spot. Remember, you have the Triangle Land Conservancy taking those lands that would be a mall or deluxe apartment buildings. So I'm thrilled at the work they do. Black-throated green warbler. Obviously, the black throat is dramatic in the spring, extends down the chest. They are gorgeous, and they are only passing through. Black-throated blue warbler. I think we've got a lot of people here who enjoyed. Robin knows this particular, Melanie knows this one, Carla knows this, Mia, we all know this is at Ebenezer. We had some wonderful ones. And Jordan Lake, Ebenezer Point is a wonderful place for birding. And these are just gorgeous birds. And again, we get to know them because they might be here for a couple of weeks. This is the female black-throated blue warbler. She looks nothing like her male counterpart. Note the little eye line of white above the eye. She will also have that cheek patch in a slightly darker gray, but she's very muted in color. Again, look where we are. We're in water to capture a warbler. Chestnut-sided warbler, again for the chestnut side. This picture I got in the mountains, but we do have them right here in the triangle, but only passing through. Canada warbler, another favorite of mine. And you can see again, there's that necklace look, a prominent white eye ring, and they only come in May. So these are those special times. And note here, this Canada warbler, there is no marking on the back. It is dull gray. All the action is on the front. And this is another low warbler that will literally be walking around on the ground. And it's a really wonderful safety mechanism to allow them to be a little less seen, and yet they can turn around and show a female how healthy they are by their beautiful breeding plumage. Worm-eating warbler. We all love a worm-eating warbler. I think it's one of those markers like you feel like it's spring. We got to see one passing through. And again, these are these low, slightly dull-marked warblers. They tend to like a clump of dead leaves. So if you see some greenery and then you see a clump of brown leaves, they will focus on that sometimes. And so I'm always kind of keeping my eye out when I see that clump of tan leaves. The blue-winged warbler, we're getting more and more of these coming through the triangle. And the wing is really a lovely blue-gray, which I enjoy very much. This is a male where the black eye line coming through is really prominent. The female has the same, only this looks a little more charcoaly. Black pole. Um, we had a really wonderful spring a couple of years ago. It was our pandemic gift to have fantastic warblers coming through Bynum. And whenever we were at Bynum, we would get there at 7 a.m. and there was this flood of birders, all in very peculiar hats and masks, uh, running to the bridge because for some reason that particular spring, the warblers came through in force. The black pole is named for that black at the top of the head. And if you'll notice on the wing, the tiny striations of yellow edging them like a razor stripe, even when it's not in breeding plumage, you're going to see that razor line of yellow. And look at the feet. The feet are going to tell you that this is a black pole also. They're bright yellow. Northern water thrush, we've already seen the Louisiana. The northern has a slightly different habit. As much as our Louisiana's out back, like that ripple of water, the northern likes stagnant water. They like the little pond. Do you know the salamander pond here at the garden? That's where this one was. And so that kind of shallow water, but in a wetlandy kind of gooey situation, you're going to see a northern. These do not breed here, the Louisiana does. Also notice the chest striping, which is dense and dark. They tend to look very dark when you see them. And they don't have, now the Louisiana had pink legs, the northern has brown legs. That's not your final marking because sometimes it's hard to see those legs, but it's one more bit of information to give you. And then we get the unusual ones every now and then. This was at Jordan Lake. It was a Kirtland's warbler. They don't usually migrate through here. They don't breed here. They don't live here. And this Kirtland's appeared and just stuffed its face with spiders. As you can see, it's covered with little bits of cobweb and hasn't even bothered grooming. And it's a wonderful, unusual, and very endangered warbler. So we were delighted to see it. And of course, my prize that I adore is the golden winged warbler. I like its name, I like its coloring. I never got any closer than this. This was up in Boone, so I made this big trip to Boone. And so I won't say it's on the home patch, but they do come here. And it's just a great treat to see one. Other birds that are coming in May that we get to look forward to, the wood thrush. If we keep our forests intact, we can help this particular bird. They're the ones that have that gorgeous song that you hear on a summer night. Remember, they have a double syrinx instead of a larynx, so they can harmonize with themselves. And the song, anyone who lives around here, how many have seen them in their own backyard or heard them? Yeah, I mean, their populations are crashing everywhere. So anything we can do to make their environment safer is welcome. And we do still get them here. And protecting land, planting native plants, they require a moist substrate. And that didn't occur to me until one very dry season when the ground was hard as a rock. And I have one tree in my yard I really like, and every afternoon I'd go out to water that tree. I said, well, if anything's going to survive, I want that little tree to survive. And every time I went out, suddenly there was a wood thrush staring at me 10 feet away. And they're not a friendly bird. And he'd be there waiting, wings kind of down. And I realized just in the area around there, that moist soil allowed him to go dig for earthworms because they will put their beak right in looking for bugs. So, there are things that help that you don't even realize that you can do. Veery, um, this is our sort of our freckle face of the thrush family. They have another gorgeous song, which you probably won't hear because they only sing on territory and they're just passing through. Look for them in May and you could recognize them. It's a thrush, but it's our ginger, it's really has this freckly, I'm a redhead appearance. Swainson's thrush. Um, I took this picture in the fall because the Swainsons in spring look so darn dull. For being in forest, in deep woods, they're this grayish brown that you just don't pick out. And so this one had a red berry, and I said, all right, we'll use a fall picture. But it's, again, a member of the thrush family, migration only. So there's a short window of time. You also get the unusuals. In May, who's going to come visit? It might be a roseate spoonbill. This one was at the New Hope bird area, the one by the highway. It's a bird impoundment, which you can visit. And every now and then you get some really cool individual birds. And of course, finally, my dear one, in April, our barred owls are going to be raising their babies. And spring is a wonderful time to see the local babies. In this case, it was right behind my house. And this barred owl had been tucked in this sycamore for quite some time. And they're so tucked down when they're little that you don't know what's going on. But then before they get ready to go, they've got to stretch their legs. So this one every afternoon would come popping up and then it would go like this. And try it. It was trying its best to sort of get a little exercise before it makes that big plunge to the ground. So I would joke and I'd say, well, stand tall, soldier, because it would just be up there. And these are the joys of spring birding here. I met someone once who said to me, I was pointing out some really neat ruby crown kinglets in an argument. And I said, oh, look at that, isn't that cool? And she goes, well, we bird in the Galapagos. Well, fancy that. We've got a lot right here. And think about it, as much as I adore travel, I'm here at least 300 days a year. And I say, have some fun while you're out there and go ahead and enjoy what we have within 15 minutes of where we're standing right now. And that's kind of what I stand for. If you're from the 70s, and a lot of us are, remember when we would say, think globally, act locally. I can't do anything about what's happening in the Amazon right now. But what I can do is plant a native plant. I can keep my yard free of pesticides. I can encourage places like the botanical garden, and we can make it something really wonderful and a place where the birds want to stop. So that's kind of the point of why I love our local birds. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please, speak up and we can chat about where to go look for birds.
So much, Mary. That was incredible and really inspired me to get out
To get
in
out, yes.
these fields nearby, not even having to travel too far.
You don't have to go anywhere. And somebody old and decrepit like me can go and bring a chair. Any questions from anybody?
I'll bring this microphone over to those of you with questions. They do this just.
When you say Bynum Bridge, you're not talking about Chicken Bridge.
No, I'm not. I like Chicken Bridge very much. Bynum Bridge, you go from here, 15501, going towards Pittsboro. You go past Fearington, And you know the barbecue place, Allen's Barbecue? As soon as you see that sign, take a left, go to the end of the road, and you are at a tiny parking lot, and that's Bynum Bridge. The bridge will be right in front of you. There are stanchions there, but here's the nice thing. The stanchions are wide enough that a friend of mine who had a wheelchair was able to maneuver that wheelchair and actually cross the bridge. So it's really user-friendly. And it's, you know, if you're really not up for the big walk, just go check it out in May, early in the morning.
Pumpkins in the fall.
Hmm?
They have the
Oh, yes, they have, in the fall, they do a Halloween festival where everybody shows their most beautifully carved pumpkins. And it's really pretty. They light them all up on Halloween night. Any other questions?
Hi, Mary. I was wanted to ask if there's a resource of these sites that you mentioned. I was glad that you asked about Bynum, but you mentioned a number of different sites that I'm not familiar with, and wondering how does one find out about these good different locations to.
Yes, we've got our person right here. This is Barbara Driscoll, who is, by the way, amazing. She should tell us all what to do about birds because she knows it all.
I should have mentioned, New Hope Audubon, New Hope Bird Alliance is the local Audubon chapter that covers Durham, Orange, and Chatham counties, and we have twice a week bird walks, year-round, pretty much, you
They're
know.
fantastic.
Even this week.
Yeah.
Some people went out, but we have, they're user-friendly, and in the spring, we are obviously focusing on a lot of the warblers, so we will be leading bird walks to Bynum and to Triangle Land Conservancy properties and other places like that. And on our website, newhopebirdalliance.org, we also have a list of local places that you can go and how to get there. And also joining on our bird spring counts and things like that. That's a great way to learn where to go and how to see things.
Thank you.
They're also wonderful. Barbara really is, you know, quite a miracle here, and we're lucky to have her. New Hope Bird Alliance will put you out with someone who's really experienced. Quite often, they will have a pointer to say, okay, right up there, you're going to see this bird, you're going to see that bird. Until your eyes get used to looking at little tiny flitting things in the trees, they're going to be a big help in pointing them out, and the walks are excellent.
Nice.
Yes?
So could you talk about how far away are you from the birds and maybe the magnification of the lens? How
Um,
that comes into play?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, do you?
It's good to see you, by the way.
It's good to see you. Great to see you. Do you always use the same magnification, like, or do you hard to know how far away you're going to be from a particular bird?
If you're going to use a lens
Mary,
right
could you just
now,
repeat that question? Sorry.
Hmm?
Could you just repeat the question?
her
for-
question was, what kind of magnification and how far are you from these birds? I could be anywhere from 10 yards away to a football field away, if it's a big bird. I, at the recommendation of my friend Carla here, I recently bought an 800 millimeter lens. So for a bird that is going to be maybe 5 inches long, you want as much muscle as you can come up with. So you can either use a like point and shoot that's got one of those power, you know, the power shot ones, or you can get just the biggest lens that you can carry. I've complained that the lens I carry now is a little like a Duralog, where I'm, in fact, it's in that picture right there. It's a little cumbersome, but the more muscle you have, the better. You really can't get that close to warblers. Now, sometimes I will get as close as you are, and I'll still zoom in because the bird is, you know, it's this big. But that's by luck, and that's only because it's a friendly warbler. When I say friendly, it's gotten used to me sitting there. Most of the time, it's at a distance. And so you have to, there is no way to do this without binoculars. There's just no way. And if you want to photograph Get something with muscle. Even if the guy in the camera store says, oh, this will do, say, no, I want bigger. You know? So yeah, 800 millimeter. Yes.
Do you-
I have a birdhouse in my yard and I've had bluebirds nest for the past 2 years. And so there's pine straw in the little, in the house. Should I clean that out?
Yes. Now, of course, no good deed goes unpunished. I had some birdhouses and I used to clean them probably in late fall. And I'll tell you why. One winter, I said, oh, you didn't clean those, clean them out. And I go, and you know what you do? You tap on the box, make sure nobody's home, and then you go in and clean it out. By winter, sometimes a bluebird will use it on a cold night as a resting spot. So I don't clean them in winter. I get it all done by late fall. But this one I did in winter, and there was no knock, 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 nothing happened. And I opened it up and I scooped it out into my hand, and a flying squirrel is looking at me. And I can't tell you how guilty I felt. He has a warm bed and he's got the bedding, and I ruined it for him. And I felt really guilty. I was trying to do a good deed, but it didn't work out. So do it in the late fall when you're sure. Remember, some of them do a late brood. Make sure everybody's gone and then clear it out, because they will nest on top. If they do 3 broods, they'll just cover up that poop mess, kind of gloppy thing, and build another nest and build another nest. And so it's a good idea, just scoop it out.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and put it on a pole, not on a tree. I mean, that's huge.
The guard.
With a guard, it has to have the best. Black snakes love bluebirds, and it's just tragic if you put it on a tree. Best guard you can get. And that's, again, the New Hope Bird Alliance sells wonderful bluebird houses, and they'll also, I believe you have a thing on how to set it up and how to put the pole in and everything like that. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, and I'll be right with you.
Last year, this is a shout out for the New Hope Alliance.
They're wonderful.
I went on a bird trip with you all to Blue Stem. It's in northern Orange. And
Yeah.
as you go into the entrance, there's Blue Stem Wild there.
Yeah.
And there were so many sparrows there eating. And then we went down by the water and we had a discussion as to whether we had a Louisiana water thrush or what's the other one?
The northern
The-
water thrush. So which ones did you see that day?
Well, they talked about the flat water versus the rippling water.
Yeah.
And by that time, I was so tired and we were chasing. I don't think I ever got the last say on it, but it was a wonderful place. In fact, myself and another friend of mine, it's a natural burying site. You can be buried there
Mhm.
naturally. I
Which
think
is
that's
kind of a
where-
nice idea,
I
isn't it?
think that's where I want to be,
Oh, good. All right. Well,
with the birds.
with the birds. Yes, exactly.
So I would recommend.
Blue stem. Yes, and I bet you have that on the site. Again, New Hope Bird Alliance is just a wonderful resource, and they just have so much on their website. So great to look at. I will answer this question and then on to anybody else. Yes, ma'am.
Every year I leave my live Christmas wreath on my porch.
Yes.
And every year I have a house finch nest in it.
Oh, I like
Is
that.
it the same couple? Would they come back every year?
It is possible, especially to choose that exact spot. It could also be the young from that group. But yes, it's perfectly possible. And that's an example of things that, the little things we can do. I always put my Christmas tree out back, and I imagine the little bunny rabbits are going to be underneath it. Do you know what I get there? Copperheads. Now, I happen to like snakes, but I just thought it was amusing that I'm thinking, the little bunnies and the wrens. you know. So yeah, I think it's a great idea that any little low place, and it's also a place to keep them warm on a cold night. So I think it's a wonderful idea.
Hi, Mary. How
Yes.
do you pick the wet areas where you're going to just sit and wait for a couple hours? Are there any features?
Usually something will give it away. The first time it happened to me, I really wasn't familiar. I didn't know where to look for warblers. I got frustrated because it's just some blob up as high as that ceiling, if not higher. I found it so frustrating. And then I was on my daily walk, those kind of just before dinner, take a little walk. And one time I noticed a red start in this one place. And I went, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I walked again and I said, look, a Louisiana water thrush. And then another time there was a magnolia warbler there. And I said, at which point I set up a chair and I started to look around at what time. And I liked early in the morning, you get up, you take your shower. I also loved around 4:45 in the afternoon. It's hot, you're kind of tired, but you want to be dry by the time you climb into bed. 4:45 seemed to be at 5:30 seemed to be like the magic hour, and found it out by trial and error. And again, trial and error. One day at 2 in the afternoon, a worm-eating warbler went, and I'm like, well, so much for that. But if I don't have all day, I try and get there morning when the sun is already up, and then around 4:30 and those 2 hours. But you look for rocks, the sound that of the water going over the rocks, and protected, not in the middle of a lake, because a Cooper's hawk can come down, and I have seen that happen going after a warbler. What you want is an area where you look down the stream and then you see a lot of trees hanging over and it's a little dark because there's scrub and branches that maybe the Cooper's hawk can't penetrate. So if they see something coming, go into the briar patch, get in someplace tucked in. So if I see that overhang and rocks and burbling water, that's what I'm looking for. Any other questions?
I've got one.
Uh-oh.
To close us off, we got just a couple minutes left. You shared so much about the birds, but I want to hear about Mary. Where did this passion begin? Were you a birder first? Were you a photographer first? Did they just kind of happen naturally together?
It kind of happened. Well, when you reach 50, something happens to you, just everyone, where your brain turns and you go, what kind of bird is that? And I don't know what happens because it's kind of an older crowd. We all are. Maybe we have a little more time or we want to take more time with things. I started out, my dad was a naturalist. And so at the age of 2, he was putting snakes in my hand and he'd say to me, it's a baby snake. And I was like, take it home. So I loved being out on those trips. And we would go to the turtle place or the frog and toad place, and I'd find baby turtles. And so I fell in love with it early on. And then it kept going. And then it went, and then I started to get in, salamanders and this and that. And I knew some birds, but not enough. And then I started looking at birds more and more and more. So I'm not primarily a birder. I like it all. Every single bit of it. I love moths in particular. By the way, these people here are great. They always warn me about good moths. And why do we have good moths? Because we have all this good debris around for them to hatch from. And there's caterpillars galore here. So I really love the botanical garden for that. But yeah, I started at 2. And if somebody tells you a snake is nice when you're 2, they stay nice for the rest of your life. And really, they're fantastic. They do a job, and we have to embrace everything. Even the mosquitoes feed bats. So, we take what we get.
Thank you so much for sharing, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you all again so much for joining us today. As I mentioned, we have more great events coming up with our bird-friendly landscape series. Some of them are on the screen right now, but we've got plenty more online. Feel free to check those out, and we hope to see you there. Thanks again for joining today, and stay warm.